Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the Board of Supervisors meeting for the town of Sevastopol on Monday, April 17th at 7 p.m. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Amy, would you do a roll call to establish a quorum, please?
Supervisor Jeannie Vogel.
Here.
Chairman Dan Mosul.
Here.
Supervisor Derek Daniel.
Here.
Supervisor Mark Hain.
Here.
Supervisor Linda Waite.
Here.
So we are good to go. All right, we'd like to know who's all here this evening, so we'd like to go through a little meet and greet, and we'll start on the front table. If you'd introduce yourself, please, that would be great.
My name is Martha Schoenfeld, and I live at 4052 Glenham.
Thank you.
Amy Coulterjohn, I also live on Glidden Drive.
Hugh?
Hugh Zettel, 3986 Glidden Drive.
Cameron Naylor-Skwitarski from Destination Sturgeon Bay.
Mary Spangler from 3746 Glidden Drive.
Ray Spang.
James Mitchie, 4159 Bayshore Drive.
Michael Survey, 7675 Elm Point Road, Bailey's Harbor.
Carrie Chernago, 839 Circle Ridge Circle, Sturgeon Bay.
Bill Parsons, 4147 Bayshore Drive.
Adele Douglas, 5301 Pine Tree Road, Sturgeon Bay.
Eddie Parsons, 4147 Bayshore Drive.
I'm Dale Vogel. I live with the lady up there on Whittier Drive.
And I'm Chip Allen, 4501 Log Lane.
Jeff Lang, 6417 Whitefish Bay Drive.
Brenda Lang, 6417 Whitefish Bay.
Jim Murphy, 5075 Bluff Court, Sturgeon Bay.
Tom Reynolds, 5900 Cape Point Drive.
Carrie Nellis, 4257 Highway 57.
Craig Nellis, 7.
All right, well, welcome. Thank you for coming this evening. Did I miss somebody? Oh, I'm sorry. Laddie and Derek, you want to introduce your videographer, buddy?
Derek Demise, Country View Road. Larry Chapman, Sevastopol.
All right, good, thank you again. All right. Public participation for non-agenda items. So if you would like to speak on something, now would be your opportunity. If you're here to talk about a short-term rental, we will allow that when we get to that portion of the agenda. Yes?
I'd like to talk about the previous,
About the what?
the law for short-term rentals before this revision.
As I indicated a second ago, sir, we'll give you an opportunity when we get to that portion of the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, not hearing that, we'll move on. Amy, how about our agenda? Properly noticed?
The agenda was properly noticed.
We would need a motion to adopt.
I'll move to adopt the agenda for this evening as posted and noticed.
All right, motion by Linda, second by
Jeannie? Yep.
Jeannie?
Yep.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Approval of minutes, Board of Supervisors meeting from February 20th. You should have all had an opportunity to take a look at that. And if you're ready to go, a motion to approve would be in order.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the February 20th, 2023 meeting.
All right, motion by Jeannie, second by?
Second.
Second by Mark. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right. Pending business. This was a conversation we had a month or so back with Laddie Chapman, who's our resident video audio expert. I shouldn't say only, shared. At any rate, we had asked for an update on improving the audio in this particular meeting room. There's a lot of people that have had difficulty hearing what the board has been discussing. So we have turned that over to Laddie, and Laddie, I'll give you a few minutes to tell us what you did.
Well, let's see. What are we going to put on here? That's about that. I don't have that much of an update yet, but I will have a detailed report on some possibilities with dollar amounts by next board meeting. I'm talking to several installers locally who can help us put in a new system that should meet our needs for many years to come. I'm glad to talk to somebody or answer questions if you have them. No questions?
I have one.
Yes, sir.
Did you give them some kind of parameter in terms of cost?
Well, I gave them rough ideas, but we don't really know what they're going to propose. I did tell them we probably need more than one scale of estimate because the budget has not been finalized.
Okay. I mean, I just don't want us to come back and have a $25,000 system, you know.
Well, that might be one of the proposals, but I don't think they expect that.
All right, well, good luck. We'll see you next month, I guess.
Okay.
All right.
Betty's got her name, or our name.
Sorry, Betty?
Could I ask that everybody, all the board members with their mics in front of them, keep the mic close to their mouth when they're speaking?
Yes, please.
Can't get any closer? Well, maybe a little bit. All right. Moving on, we have Sturgeon, I'm sorry, I keep saying Sturgeon Bay Visitors, it's wrong. We have Destination Sturgeon Bay, formerly Sturgeon Bay Visitors Center. Here we have Cameron Katursky, her two. We have both of her and her sister. We had invited them back. To really discuss where they were with the promotion using the marketing dollars that the town had given Sturgeon Bay. As a brief recap, back in, I want to say September, October, they came to us and asked for our promotional monies for their marketing purposes. We asked for an extra 30-day extension, trying to understand if it was the right course of action to take. We came back the following month and we made the determination to stay with Destination Sturgeon Bay. And I believe roughly right that sum of money was $75,000, which was up significantly from what it had been in prior years. Prior years it had been in the 20,000, mid-20s in terms of what was up. One of our concerns were, frankly, our disappointment in that the Destination Sturgeon Bay puts out a visitor's guide, which many of you have seen in the different racks throughout the community. And this year, with the additional funding that we gave, we were very disappointed to find out that there was no promotion of any any Sevastopol event in the visitor's guide. I expressed our concern to Cameron, and I asked her to come back to the board, and I want to give the board an opportunity to talk with, express their concerns or interest. And you have given us a packet of information with respect to a quarterly update, which we also discussed, and hopefully some resolution to what we think are some shortcomings in promotions of our town events. So with that, let me give you a few minutes to take us through this, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me tonight. I know you've got a busy agenda, so I'd like to keep it brief, but just wanted to, first of all, address those concerns that you brought up, Chairman, as well as kind of giving you a recap of what we've been up to this 2023 season. Still can't believe it's April, but we are hitting the ground running before summer arrives. So just a quick update on our 2023 Fire and Ice event that we held in February. This is one of our largest events that we hold in Sturgeon Bay, taking place President's Day weekend. This year we had our ice block and snow carving taking place in Sturgeon Bay. We had a beautiful day with a large turnout, and our gala had about 275 attendees. I did just want to recap that I did check in with our Sevastopol lodging members, and Bayshore Inn, Westwood Shores, and Chanticleer Guest House were all sold out for Fire and Ice weekend. So not only a successful turnout for Sturgeon Bay, but also town of Sevastopol as well.
Good to hear.
Yes, we were really excited to hear that feedback for a weekend in the middle of February, which is wonderful. Our staff has really been busy as well preparing for our 25th annual Fine Art Fair that we have taking place Memorial Day weekend. And also another really big component that our staff has been working on this first part of 2023 has been preparing for our Sturgeon Bay Farmers Market. We have a couple of the farmers market vendors from Farm Store 57 here in the audience as well. But our market is the largest indoor county, featuring over 70 vendors, which takes a lot of coordinating. So our marketing manager and events director, Andrea, has definitely been busy. So I wanted to talk about the two Town of Sevastopol events that we had discussed last time I visited in assisting with their promotion. I would like to thank the clerk and Supervisor Waite for sharing with me the contacts for both of the organizers for these events. We reached out, and I have not yet connected with Mary Gilbert, but we look forward to helping them promote, especially with the location being at the Threshery grounds this year for the 42nd annual dairy breakfast. For the 40th annual Valmy Threshery, I had a really nice conversation with both Ralph Bacek as well as Becky Gosser. We look forward to partnering together to promote the 40th annual Threshery. Becky had some really great suggestions for the current advertisement and promotion that they do and how Destination Sturgeon Bay can help. Right now, they currently use Let's Go Door County, which is a local media outlet, and we look forward to helping as we work closely with Nick Frymuth as well to promote the Threshery. We'll also partner together to work on a press release and get that out to our local media news sources to share the word about the 40th annual event. In conversation with Becky, she really wanted to focus on the history of the event, being this is the 40th annual Threshery, as well as celebrating antique machinery. And so I look forward to attending and updating them at a committee meeting that they've got taking place on April 27th. And both of these events currently are on our website, and we look forward to working with both of the event organizers to continue discussing how we can further partner. So I think this was kind of the basis of our conversation that we had last time, is how Destination Sturgeon Bay can work to promote and market Sevastopol further than we've done in the past. So my first point is in enhancing coordination with both the dairy breakfast as well as the Threshery event organizers. One of our partners, Destination Door County, has offered to give us 2 complimentary social media posts for both of these events on their social media networks. They have over 140,000 Facebook followers and over 77,000 Instagram followers. Both of these event promotions are valued at $500, so they will give us free of charge a post for both the Threshery as well as for the dairy breakfast. So that should be really wonderful for a large reach. Other ideas that our staff has talked about is in our e-newsletter, which goes out to over 13,000 subscribers, is doing either featured member posts for some of our Sevastopol lodging members or for promoting those events on the e-newsletters that we provide. I included some screenshots of 3 of the social media posts that have been made since 2023 has started for a few of our both lodging partners as well as a restaurant partner in Sevastopol. If you look at the screenshot of the post on the left, that was of Donnie's Glidden Lodge. In the first day, it reached over 55,000 people. So normally our posts do not perform this well. Apparently everybody has a very close affinity to Donnie's Glidden Lodge. But the Cozy Supper Club Saturdays post garnered over 1,400 likes or loves or interactions on that social media post. It had 231 comments and it had 65 shares. So that's a fantastic performance. Another post that always does very well on our social is Cave Point. On this post that was created on January 11th, in the first day, it reached over 29,000 people, and it was another very well-performing post. And then at the end of February, we also had a post for Bayshore Inn. So just kind of looking at the analytics of those posts and how well they perform and how many people they reached. And then another conversation that we had, and this is kind of to your point, Chairman, about your disappointment in the listing for the events. And I do apologize, that was a change that we made this year. And following COVID and the pandemic, it's just been really hard to kind of track events, and things change quite frequently. So in this year's activity guide, we actually did only list Destination Sturgeon Bay sponsored events. So those are the 10 events that we annually host. I think in the previous activity guide, there were like 35 plus events that were listed on those event pages. One of the ideas that we had is featuring not only Town of Sevastopol, but also our other community partners in the 54235 on sort of a partners kind of combo page in our next activity guide. And believe it or not, we are actually thinking about the 24 activity guide already, which is kind of crazy. But some of those things could include like event highlights, so we could highlight both the dairy breakfast as well as the threshery, a community profile, so it could include maybe somebody in the community, a business owner, or something along those lines. And then another thing that we kind of thought about is, I know you mentioned, Chairman, last time I was here, that a lot of people don't know that Cave Point is in fact in Sevastopol. So something along the lines of most Instagrammable spot in Sevastopol, with including Cave Point, so people, that's front of mind for folks. So those were a few of the kind of suggestions and things that we're thinking about moving forward into 2024. And then I just did, Supervisor Waite was in her office last week and did get to meet a few of our staff members, but I did just want to highlight again our staff here at the Destination Sturgeon Bay team. We're a small but mighty team that wear a lot of hats, but this is our team at DSB. And with that, that's kind of what I wanted to leave you with. I'm happy to answer any questions or follow up any of what I presented in tonight's presentation.
I will open it up to the board if they have any comments or questions as a starting point.
Okay, so last fall, Cameron, you were here and along with other people from Destination Sturgeon Bay. And when the board voted to give 100% of the strategic community marketing or partnership funds to Destination Sturgeon Bay, I think we were assured at that time that we would get some decent exposure and more promotion. I'm going to guess this is a cherry orchard in the town of Sevastopol?
I believe so,
It would have been
yes.
nice to have that recognized in the visitor guide. Like I mentioned, I was reading this over breakfast not too long ago, and I did not see one mention of the dairy breakfast nor the threshery, especially since they're having their 40th anniversary this year. So I was very disappointed in that. You mentioned Donnie's Glidden Lodge and Chanticleer and all that. Fantastic, but those are paid advertisers in here. I mean, they have to pay to have an ad in here, correct? What I would like to see, and I think I mentioned this at one of our meetings, you have it in here, a 2-page spread. Check out your neighbor to the north. When in the Sturgeon Bay area, check out the town of Sevastopol. Yes, we have Cave Point, and yes, we have restaurants and nightclubs and golf courses and orchards with pick your own, and we have farmers market out here too. So too late for this edition, but please keep it in mind for next year. And like I said, in years past, probably before you came on board, I distinctly remember being contacted about what do you want to put in the guide this year. And I definitely did not see that last year, and I just, forgot to maybe follow up with you to make sure that our events were mentioned. Yeah. So going forward, I would love to see a 2-page spread in here. E-newsletter and Facebook and your website is all fantastic. But when people are staying in motels or waiting for their dining room table to open up, they're probably looking at this. And to have some nice exposure in there would be great. So yeah. I appreciate the efforts that you're going to make for us. Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate the feedback. And, even what you were just describing, we're really hoping in the next activity guide to move into a more content-heavy piece, so really telling the story. So what you had mentioned there about, places to eat and things to do, and then, Cave Point, most Instagrammable spot or best place to take a picture, all of those kinds of things. I'd love to see that there in more of a content way. So thank you for the feedback.
And even, if it is a 2-page spread out, if we could get that, I assume at no charge. We have lots of great photos too, like I said, the orchards, Cave Point, the golf courses, our parks. We got a great pickleball court now, so anything you can do to give us that exposure. Thank you.
I think the message is we give you a significant amount of funding. I know there's other organizations and businesses that do that as well, but we'd like a better bang for our buck and for you to make a difference, and so that the people in our community, the business people in our community feel the difference and feel that we're doing something for them. Otherwise, our only other option would be to fully go into the business community and start our own organization, recapture those funds and let those people build off. But I think you're totally capable of doing that. We just need to make sure that we don't become forgotten items in the list. And I understand it is Destination Sturgeon Bay, but we're pretty close. So.
And that's why I'm glad I'll be giving quarterly updates. So I look forward to updating the board, absolutely. And again, just the initial conversation that I had with the Threshery folks, they're very appreciative, and this is something that we do on a daily basis. So to help in that way, we're happy to help. So thank you.
Okay, good. Any other comments from the board?
That's covered.
it. Okay, good. We'll look forward to your next appearance. Thank you for coming.
That sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
All right. All right, next item of business is short-term rental ordinance update. Excuse me. So before we begin, I'd like to make a couple of comments based on some of the comments and correspondence and telephone calls that we've received of late. And I just want to reiterate the obvious, which is nothing that we do in this town, everything that we do in this town is public. There's no unofficial meetings. All of our meetings are posted. All of our minutes are posted. All of our meetings are on YouTube. Hopefully you're on YouTube tonight, by the way.
Yes.
I did get a message saying there was a problem. And also on our TV station. So we're not hiding anything. Everything we do is out in the open on our website. Our agendas are posted on our town website as well as the minutes. The Plan Commission has had short-term rental as an active topic since November of '22. There have been 4 specific meetings in 2023 on this ordinance: January 10th, February 7th, March 16th, and April 5th. I've been to 3 of those 4 meetings, and I can't say that I saw more than 2 short-term rental owners at any of those meetings. Some of the details of this ordinance are also restating existing regulations that have been state laws. They are not town laws. I'll give you an example. Fireworks has always been prohibited. It's done by state law. And ADA compliance is another one orchestrated by the state of Wisconsin, supported by the town. Some of the details in this ordinance have been, I think, misinterpreted or maybe recommunicated with some errors. The other thing you need to recall is this is a short-term rental ordinance that applies to residences that are rented for less than 7 days. If you rent properties for more than 7 days, it's not governed by the town. So you have certain flexibility in how you promote and rent your particular residence. I'm going to ask Linda to review the changes with you, and after a time, we will have an opportunity for discussion. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Waite.
Okay, I believe you all have a copy of the ordinance. If you don't, on this first table up here, you will find the complete ordinance. The yellow highlighting represents the changes made from our ordinance adopted in July.
They don't have the highlights on there.
Oh, it's not highlighted. Okay, that's all right. We have line numbers, so we can easily reference exactly where we are. So as you know, we originally adopted an ordinance in July of 2021 regarding short-term rental of residential dwellings in the town of Sevastopol. The ordinance was based on Act 59 and what regulations and stipulations we could put in there, obviously reviewed and approved by our legal counsel. So, with some additional concerns and issues that have come forth, okay, great, thank you, Laddie. It's posted on the screen up there so we can just follow along. So So the Plan Commission, as our chairman mentioned, we've had several meetings to address this, and this is a draft that we have come up with. So obviously amendment to the existing ordinance and our previous ordinance of 01-2021. We'll go just down the line here. 20 and 21, obviously we're just restating ordinance number 01-2021. Purpose, all is good. We did make an addition. If you look at lines 32 and 33, Door County affordable and available workforce housing in Door County has been a subject. So we did add that one of our purposes was to help ensure adequate workforce housing for year-round residents as well. So that was an addition. All right, so going to page 2, you'll see a lot of yellow on here. We did add 3 sections. So, owner occupied. I'm not going to read the entire paragraph. Basically, it says that a property owner must permanently reside on the premises that is considered their primary residence if they are going to be a short-term rental offering. Okay. Paragraph F, we have the description of a primary residence, your fixed and permanent home for at least 183 days out of the year. Basically, this is your residence where you file your tax return. So, and G, change in ownership means the transfer of a property owner to a person other than their spouse or family member or descendant or issue, we call it, or an entity. One that would not fall within that would be a arm's length sale to a non-related person. Okay? And then the license, not too many changes there on A or B. If you look at line 92, down on the bottom there, the renewal application should include any updated information since filing the original application. So if you had a change in mailing address or phone number, or you changed agents, you would be required to file another application, a renewal application with that current information in it. Okay? And of course, an application anytime change of ownership occurs. I'm on page 3 now, on the top of page 3. Okay? Paragraph number 4 on that page, all short-term rental license issued on or after July 1st, 2023 for rentals of less than 7 days, as our chairman mentioned earlier, must be owner occupied. So if you are operating a short-term rental and are holding a valid permit and license from all of the entities that require a license, you would be exempt from that new law or regulation. Okay? Again, lines 99, 100, and 101. You shall be exempt from the owner-occupied requirement as long as you keep renewing and maintaining your license in good standing. All right, down to the bottom of page 3, we added a sentence there, just basically reinforcing compliance with our Door County sanitarian requirements when it comes to POUTs, private on-site wastewater treatment systems, septic systems, mound systems, holding tanks, whatever. Maximum capacity is determined by taking the number of bedrooms identified in the building or sanitary permit multiplied by 2. Again, that is a county regulation. Going to page 4, parking. Lines 143, 44, and 145, we just added that the county also has parking restrictions in its comprehensive zoning under Chapter 7, and that also provides that sufficient off-street parking shall be available on the premises to accommodate all vehicles. We don't want the situation, if you are parking on the road and the road is narrow and the ambulance and or the fire department can't get down the road, that's a tragedy waiting to happen, obviously. So parking on the premises, not on the road, off-street parking. And then going down to subparagraphs 10, fireworks strictly prohibited, that's pursuant to Wisconsin statutes. Fireworks are not permitted in the state. You have the section reference there. Paragraph sub 11, campfires and fire pits, again, shall comply with all applicable town and county ordinances. We don't have it detailed there, but contained within a fire ring, monitored at all times. Pay attention to if the level for fires is high, please pay attention to that. Again, town and county ordinances. Paragraph 12, garbage and recycling containers. That was one of the issues that has been brought to our attention. Okay, they take the garbage receptacles out on Monday morning and nobody collects them until Saturday evening or the next weekend. They're blowing around on the road, in the ditch or whatever. So we did add that, please return them to their designated spot on the premises within the day. Paragraph 13, any short-term rental that is subject to Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, must be in compliance. Again, that is not a town of Sevastopol rule, that is a federal rule. In paragraph 14, some of the activities that are going on at the short-term rentals, usage of a short-term rental for activities other than the sole expressed use of the registered overnight guests is subject to county comprehensive zoning and town ordinances. In addition, if you are listing with Airbnb, VRBO, they have put out a bulletin and they prohibit disruptive parties and events for properties listed on their platforms. In line 177, that was, we added road miles instead of as the crow flies, so we clarified that to include the word road. And then going to the top of page 5, B should not be highlighted. There was no change to the paragraph numbering itself, but at the end of the B of paragraph sub B, we did add during periods in which the short-term rental is rented. So your agent must reside within the county with offices located within the county during the periods that your dwelling is rented. And C is a new subparagraph, property owners subject to that previous section about owner occupied shall reside at the short-term rental during the nights when it is rented. Line 212, 213, you will notice now we previously used notify your neighbors within 200 feet of your property boundaries. We have changed that to 400 feet. Page 6, lines 246 through 262, that is new with some compliance requirements. I won't read the whole thing, but as long as your agent, responding, that was one of the concerns that was brought forth to the town board and other people that, okay, there's a complaint, they're parking on the street, we called the agent, or there's noise going on, we call the agent and the agent says, don't worry about it, they'll be gone in 2 days. That is not a corrective action. So we spelled it out there, to if someone makes a complaint, the agent will be notified, and they're supposed to be available 24/7 by phone, that they must take steps to correct the situation. And again, where applicable, if you are listed with Airbnb or VRBO, they may be notified of those complaints as well. And then line 264, we just added the word enforcement. Penalties was already there, we just added enforcement, since it does speak to enforcement. And that is basically the changes that were made.
All right, there's been opportunity for those of you who wish to speak.
Oh, me first.
Unfortunately, this gentleman back here's arm was hanging up already.
Andy's up.
Thank you.
There is a 3-hour time.
I like your shirt. I like your shirt too.
Thank you.
Can we speak from our seat?
If you have a microphone, you can, because we need to hear you.
Oh, okay.
Grab Hughes.
Hughes.
He's pretty good sharing.
These questions are for Linda Waite, who seems to be most knowledgeable on the subject of STRs. I'm excited that you're willing to finally answer questions from all taxpayers. For the last 2 years, none of my questions concerning the STR legislation have not been answered by anyone on the board. Do I get an apology? Do you think this is legal to pass legislation and not let the audience speak on the legislation like you did when you first passed this? Do you think that's legal? Have you communicated on this new STR legislation using emails without a quorum, a violation of Federal Open Meetings Act? Yes or no?
We have not violated any open.
Do you know about the $10,000 fine for each violation of this legislation? I would like to present to Amy a formal request for all emails concerning this legislation.
You need everything.
Okay, we have a policy for open records request. So if you contact
Okay.
Amy after the meeting, there is a form that you need to fill out, Ray, so.
Thank you.
Yep.
Including emails this time. That's part of the legislation. Number 2, according to the Door County Pulse newspaper, Linda Waite asked Joel Kitchens if he could pass total across the state ban on all house short-term rentals. Was his answer in effect, the state has given towns a potent drive them out of business 5-day requirement that only Sevastopol is using? So a total ban is not going to happen soon. Was that your understanding of the conversation in the Pulse?
Absolutely not.
Okay, well then they're wrong. Is this your memory of the conversation and you say no? Are you attempting to use legislation to restrict the free trade of legitimate new and old house rentals?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to defer to you on what
Yeah, you're going to have to focus on this
proper
ordinance.
procedure here.
This new legislation, as well as the old legislation, will not be applied to residents?
Ray, we're going to take a time out on this. all right? We're here to discuss the ordinance. I'm not going to go through all of these things.
Well, this is about the ordinance.
Well, I'm terribly sorry, but this is well beyond the coverage of that aspect of it. We have been acting within the guidelines that the state has given us. We have been through our attorney for both the original ordinance and for the amended ordinance, and we
So
have
you
been-
are forbidding me to talk at an open meeting?
No, I'm telling you to focus on something other than asking questions which are not relevant to this ordinance about the Door County Pulse.
So
A five-day window. It's a
That isn't-
7-day.
That conversation isn't representative of this legislation?
Focus on your concerns.
Are you
not on
attempting
all
to
of these
use
things.
legislation to restrict and ban free trade
No.
of legitimate?
Let's move
No.
on to the next question.
This new legislation, as well as the old legislation, will not be applied to residents? Like they can make as much noise as they want?
I don't know where you get this from.
Well, this is from logic.
No. There's
then
nothing
who
in there about
well, who
applying
will
to residents
protect-
or non-residents.
Who will protect our residents from the behavior of, our guests from the behavior of the residents? Say they have a loud party, or they have a dog that's vicious.
They have to follow the same ordinances.
Yes, but who protects them from the residents? Do they follow,
They
do
pick
all
up the-
these,
They can pick up the
do
phone.
are all these restrictions applied to the residents also?
Yes?
Yes, okay, good.
Otherwise, we
Then
wouldn't
they
have nuisance.
they can't put a van in their driveway? Or
We didn't say, there's nothing in the ordinance that says about, anything about a van in the driveway, Ray.
no, a trailer in the driveway?
Nothing in the ordinance
there?
that says.
Okay.
No structure
Then a
other
new
than a
owner-
dwelling should be
Then a
used
new
for
owner
rentals.
who has to live in the residence can live in a trailer on the property. Is that correct?
Say that again?
A new owner that has to live in the property
Right.
while they're renting it out, can they live in a van, some sort of,
No, it says they have
No,
to
they
live in the
can't.
primary residence.
No, county ordinance
Well,
would not
it'd be-
allow you to
no,
live in
Well,
your
he's
It would
saying,
be-
he's saying during a short-term rental, could
I
I
know.
live in a van or could I live in a
well, it is
RV?
their property though, the driveway. Okay. Our Linda Waite's neighborhood tried to stop an STR, but was the court prevented this? Is this correct?
I lived in a neighborhood that had a homeowners association with about 30 lots, and it wasn't just Linda Waite, it was the majority of the neighbors that we had covenants and conditions and restrictions that it was to be single-family use only.
And you lost that in court, right?
The judge did not support those covenants and restrictions, correct.
How does that apply to this ordinance?
Okay, does this,
This has gone off the deep end of the chart here.
Number 6.
okay, thank you. I do have a question about construction vehicles. They are on the road also, and they stop or are in the way of fire department trucks and others. Are you restricting construction vehicles from parking on the Glidden Drive, say?
If they're in the way, someone will generally ask them to move.
Okay. Now, we've had two fire rings that were taken away by the lake. And we're now required to have fire rings. How do they, if they're taken away, what happens? I mean, the lake washes them away.
There's nothing that we have in the ordinance that says a fire ring. She mentioned a fire ring, but there's nothing in there that says a fire ring. It says that it's encouraged that you stay there, observe the fire, and not risk it getting out of control or burning the neighborhood or the trees or whatever.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Chairman, can I just respond to one thing, if you don't mind, of his questions? I just want to point out that the Sevastopol public hearing for short-term rental, was actually broadcasted on, if I can actually get this on the screen, give me 1 second. Broadcasted live on May 11, 2021. It lasted for about 2 hours. That was actually by streaming it online. Not only was it posted in the meetings, we streamed it online. So that should actually follow part of the open records, or, sorry.
Right, I know that it was broadcast.
Whatever, but I'm just saying that we did have it posted online. I just wanted to show you that we do have proof that it was there.
Thank you.
So, and it is on our YouTube page that you can watch it. And a lot of people did attend.
Amy, you were second,
Okay.
so give you the opportunity.
Can you hear me okay? Yeah? Okay. So as an introduction, my husband and I are co-owners of the short-term rental that was selectively targeted this past year on Glidden Drive. We have been licensed short-term rental for approximately 10 years with no issues prior to the passing of the Sevastopol Ordinance. We were singled out and penalized $15,000 for having a septic system that was undersized for the occupancy, despite our providing a timeline that demonstrated we are working diligently and in good faith to have our septic system updated. This was no small task logistically and involved a $50,000 septic upgrade in a time plagued by supply chain issues and labor shortages. There was absolutely no grace period offered to us. We have continuing concerns that we share with many other short-term rental owners regarding the existing ordinance as well as the proposed amendment. That being said, I'm going to pause a second and Chairman, just address what you said earlier in your opening, and I may skip over some things here as we go through, so I appreciated your opening. The township received nearly $200,000 in room tax from the 2022 season alone. We feel the ordinance does nothing to support and protect the enterprise that make this substantial financial contribution. As Linda Waite stated in the Door County Tourism Zone brochure, how room tax is used. Room tax revenues are designated toward the Town Hall Building Fund, the room we sit in, and have subsequently helped cover the cost of land purchase and debt service incurred to build the town hall. So as a short-term rental owner, oftentimes we feel that we are villainized and made to feel that we are not a contributing part of the community. So to read that makes us feel a little better about our efforts, because we are business owners and we are trying to be professional, and we have brought a lot of business, and quite honestly, on Glidden Drive, 3 new owners to Glidden Drive who rented from us. 1 built a house, 2 others bought houses, and my husband and I are in the process of retiring here and building another house on Glidden Drive. So this is our community, this is our town, and we care deeply about what happens. Moving forward, we need detailed clarification on the following points. Parking. The short-term ordinance for parking says nothing in the original ordinance, said nothing about limits in driveways. It only referred to the town ordinance which deals with street parking. How then is there a limit on parking imposed? This gray area has residents counting vehicles in our driveway and subsequently reporting false violations. Noise. Both we and our guests enjoy outdoor spaces and swimming at our property. We expect kids to be playing outside, people screaming because they jumped in cold water, or people raising their voice to communicate while kayaking to be totally acceptable behaviors during quiet hours. Who determines what a noise violation does or does not include? Bonfires. You did a great job going into detail with that, but I am going to bring up my point of we have a 14-inch smokeless contained fire pit on a cement patio. The Glidden Drive Association guidelines, which I gave you a copy of tonight, guidelines for renters, for guests and renters, states bonfires are legal and allowed. Yet at the meeting, which we had our attorney here to represent us, yet at that meeting, you discussed our property, and a board member of the Glidden Drive Association reported that our guests had a bonfire. Your response was, call the fire department, which subsequently ended up in the Pulse newspaper, which to me is horrifying. Events, what do you consider event? When we get together with my immediate family, there are 35 of us. How are you going to determine whether a gathering at a property is for personal use or a rental? Our paying guests may be visited by friends. I don't consider this an event. We had a situation last year where we hosted friends of ours, and a neighbor decided to take it upon himself to trespass on our property, take pictures of our friends and their minor children, and confronted our friends. We did file a police report that evening. This ultimately is creating a situation where residents are breaking the law to enforce an ordinance which has no protection for the homeowners. As a result of this incident, we have added security and are in the process of creating more privacy with a local landscape company, yet another very large financial investment. Owner-occupied, we do not support this limitation for any short-term rental. Clearly, there is an awareness that few, if any, homes are set up to accommodate both paying guests and owners. We feel this is another way to reach an apparent goal to eliminate illegal enterprise. We feel that the terms for this license, for license suspension are designed to jeopardize short-term owners' license status. Americans with Disability Acts, I did try to make some phone calls on this and get clarification on my own, but I would say please provide a detailed explanation of what you are imposing on this line item. We have and intend to continue to accommodate elderly, chronically ill, and handicapped guests in our home. In a specific case, a trailer is required for specialized wheelchair and equipment. In other cases, elders or handicapped bring three-wheel bikes, or in one case, an adapted kayak with specialized trailers. Will this require our notifying the township or all of our neighbors? Are we unable to practice respectful discernment in serving our guests without onlookers filing complaints? In closing, the addition of more restrictions on short-term rentals will require far more specifics in clear language so that the ordinance leaves less to interpretation. Where in the ordinance do you address the boundaries for neighbor intrusion, intimidation, trespassing, and other nuisance behaviors that impact our guests and our legal business? Chapter 25 of the Door County Code of Ordinances on bullying and harassment specifically deals with this situation. We will be protecting our interests and that of our personal and paying guests going forward. This harassment ordinance can also be used by short-term rental homeowners and managers for residents that abuse or file false complaints on your system. The sentiment around short-term rentals and your associated actions are entirely inconsistent with what Door County values: a thriving vacation and tourist community that feeds families, employs multi-generational local residents, and generously supports several hundred small businesses. As elected public servants, we expect your actions to serve the greater good of all residents and businesses without bias or actions that are increasingly detrimental to our efforts. We ask this amendment not be approved in its current form. We also ask that the complaint portal be revised to not include topics that fall outside of specific elements of the ordinance, as well as adding some level of protection for homeowners. Thank you for your consideration, and probably last thought is I would love to see us be able to move forward as a community and embrace the good and the positive that many of us are trying to bring to the community. We have made substantial investments in our properties. which helps everyone as far as Glidden Drive, certainly helps the value of Glidden Drive property values. So, thank you for your time this evening.
I will only address one or two little things, just so that there's not a misunderstanding. The ordinances, for example, that you talk about under bullying and harassment or trespassing or any of these others, yes, they're fully available to both you and residents, and if somebody is stepping out of bounds, you have the same rights as they would to call the sheriff or have the nuisance law enforced or whatever it might be. It stands for both sides, not just the short-term rental owner, but for the resident as well. If you feel someone's trespassing on your property, pick up the phone and call. We are not illogical people. We understand if there's an issue with somebody next door that just has a problem with short-term rentals, I mean, you can understand that as an individual. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that there's an issue going on between somebody and they've overstepped their bounds. And we're not in the position of saying, gee, we want to pull somebody's license or do something else along those lines. This is a business. We're regulating a business through a license. We are concerned about everyone in this town. There's 2,800 residents and there's 70 short-term rentals. So they certainly outweigh the short-term rentals. We are appreciative of what the short-term rentals have done for us from a financial perspective. This town hall is one of them. But that does not mean that we want to go to the opposite end of the spectrum, which is we do not desire to become the home of all short-term rentals in the state, nor do we desire to be the home of all storage buildings in Door County. Some of those things we do try to limit to some extent. Make sure that our residents get to enjoy the surroundings as much as you and the people that rent from you. The word bonfires was a poor choice of words. We're talking about a fire pit, for lack of that, or a fire. I know what you're talking about with respect to that. ADA compliance, that ordinance says nothing other than if you have to follow ADA guidelines. This is just restating that. And that comes down to the number of rooms that you have in a dwelling that you rent, and it's governed by the state, not by us. So it was a restatement of something just like the restatement of the fireworks.
Can I jump in 1 second? I
Sure.
did, again, try to make some phone calls today, called the ADA directly. I can make additional calls to, I think it was HUD is another resource potentially, but the information that I received today was absolutely not helpful. And I spoke with the representative directly there. So I guess, again, I would ask for clarification of what specifically you are looking for, because the answer that I got today said every short-term rental has to be ADA compliant. So I, again, am just looking for clarification on what we need to do to be compliant.
That's
in that legal brief.
yeah. The person you want to talk to, his first name?
Craig.
He's the person for the state of Wisconsin, resides in the town, that takes care of ADA compliance as well as the licensing of your short-term rental. He's the one that does the inspections.
So if we have gone through the state and done those inspections already through the state, would you assume that we are compliant, or?
I would assume, I can't answer that question, but that would be my assumption. If Craig comes out and does that he would know the difference as to whether or not you are or are not.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anyone else wishing to speak? Jim?
I just want to mention that I reviewed the changes. The changes, I think they're sensible. I think they eliminate ambiguity, which is very helpful. It's not unusual in connection with an ordinance of this sort that you have to go back and make changes to make it more readily understandable. And I think that it is very much furthers the purpose that's stated in the ordinance. So I applaud what the Plan Commission has done, and I hope that the board will accept the recommendation regarding changes to the ordinance.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Yes, Jim?
I'm Jim Mitchie, 4159 Bay Shore Drive. As many of you who have been through the STR process know, I have been through most of the meetings in the last 4 years on this topic and tried to stay up with it as much as possible. I am not a short-term rental owner, nor do I intend to be. What I wanted to say is that I support the ordinance changes as written. It's consistent with the changes that are being made, are clarification and expansion, if you will, of the original intent of this ordinance. That is that business should be run as a business and residences should be residences. And I think the changes are consistent refinements to what has been discussed for almost 4 years. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Betty's got her hand up.
Sorry, Betty?
I would like to, first of all...
Can she get a microphone?
Yeah. Could you?
I can speak louder.
You can speak louder.
You can.
I would like to commend the Plan Commission for the work they've done to date. It's been admirable. I view them as courageous, very committed. They've done thorough, deep research. They've taken lots of time to do this. And in the process, they have helped to protect our residents, our residential neighborhoods, our quality of life, and the workforce housing for our residents as well. And I would like to encourage, because my husband and I support these amendments, that you too support the amendments that have been presented tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that I missed that I didn't see their hand up? Yes, sir.
Grab the mic.
You want the mic or your hand up? The traveling microphone. Now you know why we have an audio-visual update plan.
Michael Surveys from Bailey's Harbor. Board members, I appreciate the time to listen to our opinions on the short-term rental ordinance. We all live in a resort community which most revenue is driven by tourism. We all cherish this area with our hearts. Unfortunately, Door County, along with many tourist areas, have an extreme shortage of local housing. COVID has changed the dynamics of how we live. People are working from home more than ever. Door County has been very attractive to people wanting to escape city life. Do we limit the number of STRs? Get rid of them altogether? Tax them out of business? What would be the solution? Many towns like Sevastopol struggle to maintain workforce housing, but attacking the infrastructure that places STRs in their marketplace is not the answer. Banning STRs will not bring our low-income housing back. The housing will continue to get snatched up by second and third-time home buyers. Our high-income workforce home families will continue to purchase them. Plain and simple, let's use our tourism dollars to help solve the problem. How about as a community, we focus our attention on relaxing building codes for items like deed restricted areas for our locals and housing requirements. I'm a member of Home Host of Door County. We have over 500 members following us on Facebook. We work to promote good neighbor practice policies. We represent the vast majority of STRs. We agree that if there are problem properties, they should be dealt with versus treating all owners like they are inconsiderate of their community. We are working with most other towns in developing and updating their ordinances. We really like the analogy of how do we manage a privilege of a driver's license? If they're speeding, they get a speeding ticket. If the problem continues, you take away their license. It feels like this ordinance is trying to remove the rights of all drivers, and we would like to help you come up with a solution that is more specific to the problem areas you're trying to address. Thank you for your consideration. I'm going to leave you with our members and our mission statement. We would appreciate it. You consider working with us. Thank you.
All right, somebody else had their hand up back there?
Well, I'm Brian Gaida.
We know where the microphone is.
My name is Ryan Gaida. Sorry I came in late. I was at a band concert tonight. I was just concerned about, I have an STR. I'm always concerned in future revisions that the grandfathering statement might be taken away or something to that aspect of it. And we have a property that has a main house and a cottage on our property, and we rent out the cottage when we're not using it personally. And so sometimes we do have a 3-night or 4-night stay at our cottage that is 75 feet away from our main home. And so I'm worried that in the future, at the short-term rental through the night would eliminate our option for the short-term 3 nights, even though we only rent it out for 3 nights over 7. We're concerned that in the future might be what everyone has to do. So I would ask that.
That has not been discussed. That's never been a topic for discussion, if I understand your question.
I'm just wondering, at the short-term rental, if that means my residence that's 75 feet away would, for resale value and everything else, I'm wondering if that statement.
I'm lost, I apologize.
So you own a one parcel that has 2 dwellings on it. You live in one dwelling, you rent out a short term. The owner occupied would only come into effect if you change ownership. And the ownership has, it's not going to any family member, any descendant, any issue of yours or an LLC that you're.
So that for resale value, our property would still not qualify for at the short-term rental. Would be, so if we do resell it, so if we do decide to sell it, that we have 2 properties on it, would that at the short-term rental?
I think you're getting into county zoning now because those dwellings have probably been there multiple years.
He's asking if he sells it and the next person wants to have a short-term rental, they can't get grandfathered in. They have to start over as a new STR, and then they are subject to the new STR rules. That's what you're asking.
If it stays within your family, it will continue. If you sell it to somebody that walked down the street and said, I'd like to buy your place, they have to fall under the new guidelines.
Okay. And the new guidelines state that at the short-term rental means inside the actual.
Yeah, that's what he's asking. So if he can't stay in his house 75 feet away, that doesn't cover it. They have to be in the cottage with the renter. Correct. That's his question.
You could do something different, You could.
I think we covered it. Go ahead, take your shot
Can I
at
make
it.
a point on that?
I think it's it relates to county zoning, and county zoning, in their comprehensive zoning has made some changes relative to accessory dwellings.
Right.
That you can stay in.
Cottage is considered an accessory dwelling unit, so Mariah Good from Land Use would be the best person to help answer
That's right.
I'm having a hard time hearing, so I apologize if I'm going to restate something he just said, but my understanding in, again, studying this to the best I could today, was that owner-occupied section of your ordinance pertains to less than 7 days.
Correct.
Correct.
So if this gentleman wants to rent out his extra cabin or sells it to someone, they would apply for a rental as long as they're doing 7 or more night stays. That would not, you would be fine. It's just if somebody wants to do a 4-night stay or something, that owner-occupied section would come into play. I don't know if that helps you at all, but.
You explained that very well.
Thank you very much.
You want to take another shot at it?
Oh, no, not at this,
Oh, okay.
on a different,
All right.
on a different vein.
Oh, go
If
ahead.
there are no more questions.
No, we've got another question. We've got 2.
Okay.
All right. Lady in back.
Hi, Carrie Chernago, live in Sturgeon Bay.
Yep.
STRs add a variety to our lodging offerings in Door County. Every visitor to Door County has a different reason for coming and wanting to stay in different properties. Large lodges like Bayshore Inn, and others want to rent a small cottage. Overly onerous STR regulations will limit consumer choice in Door County and will have a detrimental effect on not only tourism but also to the small businesses that benefit from the different STRs, such as plumbers, landscapers, cleaning companies, people that help to take care of the STRs. So I just want you guys to think about that when you're coming up with these very regulated, onerous ordinances. I have a question. I guess I didn't come to the planning meetings because I wasn't aware that they were happening, but that's my own thing. I can look at your agendas. But I guess I was just kind of wondering where that owner-occupied language, why that came about, what prompted it. That the owner has to be at the STR while it's being rented for less than 7 days.
Okay. Is that your?
I have a question because
That's fine.
to me, it's like, oh, you want someone to be responsible for the property, but you're already requiring a resident agent, so to respond within 24 hours, which I think probably about 99.9% of them do. But yeah, I guess that was my main question for Linda or Hugh or someone.
Answer the question on the 7-day, or on the
The owner-occupied, that's
owner-occupied, sorry. Thank you.
In answer to that question, I'm going to mention something that Ms. Coulter-John said about them making a substantial investment in their business. So we have, I think we have about 85 short-term rentals in Sevastopol now, and our population is 2,600 something. So yes, you have made a substantial investment in your businesses, but we also have permanent residents here and seasonal residents that also have made substantial investments in their home and the place where they live or the place where they spend several months out of the year. So that is why we decided, the desire for Sevastopol is to maintain residential neighborhoods. You have our purpose right there in the ordinance. Set some standards, trying to protect workforce housing for year-round residents, standards for occupancy when it comes to septic tanks and pout systems, managers and agents who are available to respond to concerns and issues that come up from the neighbors. We hear about them. So that is a step that we could take that we felt it was a good step to help protect our residential neighborhoods.
And do you feel that most of the STRs in the town of Sevastopol are ever inhabited by their owners? I know that many of them they're STRing them to bring in additional income so that they can have the house. So they're visiting probably most of the time, and they rent it out when they're not there so that they can still be able to be a member of your community.
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I believe that the majority of our STRs here in Sevastopol are absentee owners, so absentee landlords. They do not live in Sevastopol. That's my guess.
I'm going to
So-
disagree with you on that, just
Okay.
knowing the, but,
And I don't
invite
have
you
the
to-
numbers, Carrie,
Well, I
so-
invite you to maybe investigate
Yeah.
that, because I feel that that probably is a big, you maybe be surprised, put it that way. But I just want to encourage the board to just maybe amend, maybe consider that owner occupancy thing. I think much of the ordinance is good. It's being, things like this are being, that, you know, they're coming along in other municipalities with the pouts, of course. Be responsible neighbors. Don't have bonfires and light your neighborhood on fire, obviously. But I think that's, the owner occupied is just a little bit of overreach, so.
Well, it's also an opportunity for those owners to live in your community, live in your neighborhood, engage with your neighbors and your community, while still running your short-term rental.
I will add my 2 cents simply because I can't stop. How's that? I don't believe that what we've done here tonight is going to change whether or not you need a plumber, or you need a septic maintenance guy, or you need any other service that you talked about. Because those people are still renting your place, and when they leave, you're still going to need those services. So we're not going to have a detrimental impact on the surrounding community in terms of employment because we've implemented this ordinance or amended this ordinance. Also, no matter how you cut it, this is a business. Right? A lot of people are very emotional. I understand the aspect that, you know, we're trying to maintain our place by renting it. I appreciate that, but it is still a business, and as such, the government has said we have the ability to regulate things that are concerning our constituents, and so we've taken that course of action. And my last comment is, and I mentioned it at the start of this meeting, which is everything in this town is public, and we have websites, TV, YouTube, newsletters, whatever. Nobody, it just seems like people choose to ignore until we get to a point in time where we're ready to implement something before people come forward and realize what's happening in the community. I've gotten a number of people that have put forth that talk track saying, I had no idea you're springing this on us. Well, for 4 months we've been working on this. So you have to take part, understand what's going on. We appreciate your involvement, because then we don't have the sour grapes, the feeling that, you know, you've ignored us, it's after the fact, whatever. We love people's involvement. We beg people to come and participate on committees. And I can tell you for a fact, I virtually have to drag people in to do this. Again, these are opportunities for our people to say, hey, I'd like to be part of it. I'd like to understand what's going on.
I completely agree. I'm involved in committees in my own town, so.
So anyway, I'm sorry to be preaching, but it gets a little frustrating after a while.
But once again, I just would like to encourage the board to consider just maybe removing the language of the owner occupied. You can work on that with the ordinance. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, one more, all right? Whoever it is gets a microphone, so either move up here or,
I'm loud enough.
hold on, miss.
No, you're not. Need a microphone. Not as loud as you think you are.
Hugh, would you mind?
It's right there. She's right there.
Well, okay. We'll come back to you second.
I just have one question, and I don't understand why STRs don't involve the hotels. They're STRs.
Hotels have to follow all the same guidance in terms of ADA compliance, fireworks, they pay, you know, et cetera, all the things. They are inspected. I guess, I don't know what I'm missing there. They're
in commercial. Owner occupied?
Yeah, they're in commercial districts too. Not residential.
So if a short-term rental is in a commercial district, then it's okay?
The hotels
On our road that caused a lot of us.
If a short-term rental is in a commercial district or in the center of town, then the regulations don't apply?
There is no distinction there is no distinction into what zoning district an STR is or is not permitted. Zoning has nothing to do with it.
And then my second comment is owner occupied, if the house is a rental for 10 people, then it seems to me that the owner is not going to be welcome in the house with all the guests. So the owner would have to get a trailer on the property to be in compliance.
Well, if they're going to have 10 guests and it's, the standard is per the sanitarian's office, two people per bedroom, plus the owner, then I guess they would have to have
8.
6 bedrooms.
Or 6, yeah.
Bedrooms.
So a trailer on the property is okay?
A trailer on the property cannot be used as a rental dwelling.
No, a trailer on the property for the owner.
It's not the primary residence, so it wouldn't
The
be
trailer wouldn't be a
applicable.
primary residence.
The house is the residence, the trailer and RV is not.
But you said the owner has to be on the property if they are
In the
renting
property. Correct.
in a short-term rental.
In
And
the
the only way they can be on the property and out of the way of the guests is to have a trailer on the property for the owner.
Only less than 7 days. We have to emphasize that.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear
Linda,
that.
it's only less than 7 days,
Right.
right?
Correct.
If they're renting less than 7 days,
Right, less than.
then this new part of the ordinance is owner occupied. The owner has to be there.
I
If it's
think,
less than
yeah,
7
I
days.
think
Is
per
that my
county,
understanding?
per county zoning, I don't think you can reside in your RV or camper, per county zoning.
So what you're saying, just a question, if you're staying 7 nights or under, I have to stay with my guests in my house.
Correct.
Which any of you want to stay?
If you've not.
Nobody wants,
If you're not under,
If you're renting my property, would you want to come and stay with me?
this only applies to a new rental as of July 1st, 2020.
Correct, and 7 or on 7 nights.
Less than 7 nights.
When was the last time any of you went on vacation for more than 7 nights? Right, some are very fortunate too, but some people can't, and they can only go for 2, 3, 4, 5 nights. Again, if they're gonna come and stay in my house and eat my food and use the same things that I'm using, share the same bathroom.
Kind of like a bed and breakfast, and that's the way it is.
And that was the original intent. If you go back to the original Airbnb, it was an air mattress in a home where the owners lived. That was the original intent. Like our chairman said, basically bed and breakfast.
To get rid of Airbnb and VRBO.
Come back to your question, because she made me rethink, or not think, but recall.
My name is Adele Douglas again. I live on Pine Tree Road.
Okay.
Up until a few years ago, we had one of these, I forget what they're called, short-term rentals on our road. And a number of unfortunate situations occurred. And I have to say, 15 families were happy when the gentleman sold his property to someone presently living in it. If someone wants to hear some of the horror stories, I'd be happy to share. But the entire situation on many weekends in the summer became absolutely untenable for the other families living on the road. That's all.
Okay. I'm sorry, I misunderstood what was happening. I just want to come back to your question or your comment with respect to a handicapped person or something along those lines. If that situation arose, common sense comes into play, and you would inform the town and say, I have a guest that's coming, and that would negate any problems with a neighbor. It's different if they're going to park an RV and they're going to stay in it. And I had a situation last year in Clark Lake where a person rented his house. That person had a buddy come up, brought his pop-up tent camper, fired up his generator, and ran all weekend. That is not what we're trying to achieve. But in the situation you described, it's a logical, normal thing. We would handle it as any common sense prevailed.
And the verbiage of, I would ask for clarification, and maybe I'll volunteer. Tell me when to show up and I'll sit and write out so that things are more precise for short-term rental owners. We had a situation also last year, renter never asked for permission, showed up at our property, and they were there for, I believe, 4 or 5 days. 8 women in their 60s, one had leukemia. She hadn't left home since the start of COVID. Without our permission, we found out from our neighbor on Saturday that there was a camper set up in her yard. We immediately called the people to say, you can't have a camper, what are you doing? And they said, she has leukemia, she's not, again, the ordinance, we went over and over this with our attorney. The ordinance reads, basically, he read it that you cannot extend occupancy. We have 6 bedrooms, we sleep 12 people, there were only 8 women there. They weren't using it as an additional bedroom, they used it so she could go outside, and I understand, going forward, like, we'll just say, no, I'm sorry, you have leukemia, you can't put a camper on our property. But in that case, again, it turned out to be, this was a family that was just getting out, and we were being hospitable, and the neighbor was very upset. We did address it immediately when we were notified, but there are times too where things happen that we were not notified. They know they can't bring a camper and they still did. So how does the ordinance deal with those situations? Is that going to be
we don't have the process capability or enough paper to cover everything.
Oh, I understand.
So you have to take the position that we're logical, common sense kind of people, and if something like that occurs, we're going to handle it accordingly.
So communication
Communication is key, and that's
with-
simple, easy to do, but not done a lot of times, unintentionally or otherwise. So it's not our goal to make your life miserable, or, by the way, to drive us a little nuts too. This is not a career here, this is a part-time job. I'm happy to handle problems, but, our focus is not to try and drive you crazy either. We're, going to try and use common sense with respect to this. So, anyone else? Okay, we're getting close to the last person.
Okay,
Go ahead.
and I'm not sure that these comments are germane either. And I think that what I'm about to say was a subject that was brought up lots and lots when you were working on your first STR ordinance. And that is, there are always a couple sides to this. And when our family was growing up, we were so lucky. It was just ideal. We had 5 properties all together where the kids could just run back and forth all the time. They knew the neighbors, they stopped at the neighbors' houses, they were always welcome. And then periodically, one of these houses would be rented. And we had to tell our kids, here are the lines, you can't go over them. It interrupted what had been a very neighborly residential area at periodic times during the summer. So that was one aspect. And I think when you go to buy a home that you expect is going to be within a residential neighborhood, today you have to ask, does it have an STR on one side or the other side? And the potential homeowner has, or that block, and I think the potential homeowner has to ask, that question if they want to live in what they think is the, expectation for a residential neighborhood. And now what we're doing is we're effectively, periodically dropping boutique hotels, scattering them through a residential neighborhood.
All right. Last call, and that's it. Anyone else left to speak? Speak now. All right. Thank you for your comments. We're going to go back into the primary board meeting here. And if you're following our agenda, which I'm sure you are, we want to set a time for the road tour. I think in your packet, I don't know, sometimes it's mine or yours, you should have had a copy of some of the road information from last year. I'm going to ask Derek if he would be willing to go out and do the same thing that he did last year, hone in on the roads that need attention, and also take a look at your list from last year and see what perhaps did not get accomplished or what needs to be revisited. We also heard back from, I can never think of his name. Brandon, thank you. Who's going to go out and do the Whistler survey, Phaser survey for us, but there's a timeline issue He thinks it might not be ready until 1st of May or late April?
Correct. Okay, maybe we could,
Yeah.
since we're being taped, that if we could
We need to be
hold,
quiet.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's okay. So, everybody look at their calendar. Yeah.
Didn't we do Friday last year?
No, I thought we did Saturday morning.
Was it Saturday?
It was
I
a
thought we did during the work
Saturday
week.
It was a Saturday morning.
Last year or the year before? 'Cause I thought we did during the work week last year.
Anybody remember the date? Because I can go back on my
we do.
calendar.
It was May, it was the first Saturday of May, I believe.
Mother's Day. Oh, I don't have it on my calendar. Any rate, so let's look, I mean, I'm open to whatever suggestion you would like for a date. Just need to come together and agree on a tentative timeline.
You're right, it was the 6th of May, which was a Friday at 10 a.m. That's what I have on the old calendar, yes.
Yeah, we started later for
I was just
some,
gonna tell you, I got here at 9:32 a.m.
you had a conflict
I got on
or
my
something.
time, I had,
I teach a class at 8.
Oh, that's what it was.
That's
Okay.
why, yeah.
All right. So do we want to do it on a Friday?
I would love to do it during the week, because I have baseball tournaments starting up all the weekends this summer.
Okay. So with that in mind and with what Brandon is saying, I would suggest either the 12th or the 19th maybe? Pick a date that somebody's got open or doesn't?
The 19th would be better for me. I'm teaching 2 classes on the 12th.
Okay. How does it look for the 19th for everyone else?
Same,
Check my baseball
same for me for the 19th.
So you're good for the
Yeah.
19th?
You're okay?
My phone
I'm
is
okay,
being-
that's 2, 3?
Yeah, my phone is being really weird and it's not letting me go where I want to go.
9:30?
You said the 16th?
19th.
19th?
May 19th.
Oh, May. Okay, let's
Would 9:30 be okay? I could be
It's
out
fine.
here. I could be out here.
Fine by me. So it works for you? So the only one we have is Jeannie?
No,
We're still conducting a meeting,
I'm
so-
assuming it's fine because for whatever reason, it won't let me go to my
Okay,
actual date.
well, let's leave it on May 19th at 9:30. And if you have a conflict
I'll let you
later,
know.
let me know,
Yeah.
okay? All right,
Just thinking about some roads from last year, Derek, West Whitefish Bay, from St. John's to Highway 42, traveling that in the wintertime, it's horrible. And then I think the neighbors on the end of West Whitefish Bay asked us to take a look at that. And then, of course, done from Institute down to Bechtel.
Yeah, it's
I have
nonstop.
I have a couple roads that I will give you as well, Derek, that have been brought up numerous times. But I think Dunn Road's one of them we might
Yeah.
have to do a section of.
I drove that today, and it's,
yeah.
It's very pleasant.
maybe we take just two big projects and
That may
get
be-
them off the list.
Yep,
Spend the $400,000 very quickly.
on 2 roads.
On 2 roads.
Okay. So, guess what? This brings us right back to our topic of the evening. Short-term resolution, short-term rental. Where do we want to go with it? Amendment, right. So it's before us tonight to approve. You've heard all the comments from the audience, my comments, Linda's, et cetera. What's the feeling here? I can go down I'll tell you what, I'll go down the list. I'll start with Mark. Mark, where are you at with this?
I'll be completely honest, I'm not a huge fan of the owner occupied. I have a lot of the same feelings that the people in the audience do. The rest of it, I think, looks pretty square to me.
Okay. That's your only comment or concern then?
That's pretty much the only one that stuck out to me.
Okay. Jeannie, you're next. Unless you move your chair really quickly.
This is a tough one because I agree with all the changes for clarification reasons and all that. And I understand the owner-occupied provision you put in here. I don't know why it's necessarily a hang-up when, if you rent longer than 7 days, or seven days or longer, right?
Correct.
It doesn't, there's no problem.
Correct.
So it's only a question of just renting a few days, and if you just rent a few days, then it should be owner-occupied. But I'm not a short-term rental owner, so I don't know if this, I believe in fairness, but I have I also believe that residents, when you buy a home in a residential area, your expectation, I sold real estate for a long time. And when it was residential zoning, it was residential zoning, and that was before the change in the law that the state of Wisconsin that allowed anyone that had a home to rent it. And it really, where Linda used to live, they have, they set up covenants, and they weren't meant to keep people out, they were meant to keep the neighborhood, the way I read covenants at that time, to keep things in order. But, so I have I don't have, I wish we could go back, frankly, and not have, and I will say this out loud, that residents are residents and rentals are rentals. But that's not the way it is. So we have to live with the fact that there are people that live in these residences that didn't have the expectation of a boutique hotel next door. So we have to listen to them and listen to their concerns about that. So I totally understand why we needed an ordinance. And I applaud the Plan Commission for doing all the work that they did to make the original ordinance and to take the time to make the changes that they felt necessary. And I have to believe that they made a change, this particular change, for a reason that maybe they heard from a lot of people that had the concern. So, if I have to vote tonight, I will. I'll make that choice. But that's the only thing I wanted to say in regard to that particular part of the ordinance amendment.
Okay. Derek, how about you?
Well, I can say I've been to all the meetings, and I haven't seen very many people come and ask questions or provide any input. So to have it all on one night is a little bit astounding, to say the least. I am totally in agreement with what has been listed in the ordinance, in the amendment.
Okay. Linda?
Well, I think the purpose of the ordinance is clear, and we're trying to make a balance between residents in a neighborhood, as Mrs. Parsons said and others said, you buy into a neighborhood expecting it to be residential, to know your neighbors, engage with your neighbors. However, the legislature said that anybody can rent their home, no matter what the zoning is. But they did give us the ability to put some restrictions in place that hopefully will maintain the residential neighborhood. So owner-occupied, I believe, is one of those restrictions that we should put in place just to protect. Residential is residential, business is business, and now we have an overlap. And how are we going to maintain a residential atmosphere while still allowing a mini resort next door? So I think this ordinance will go a ways to help protect that.
Okay, thank you. So, I don't disagree with any of the comments that anyone's made. I do understand that the owner-occupied component is going to make life difficult for those that rent less than 7 days. But as I indicated earlier,
As a new rental.
as a new rental, yes, thank you, as a new rental. Whether it's 75 or 85, I've lost track of the number of STRs. We also have many, many residents that really believe that they're in a residential area, and it should be that way. They like to know who their neighbors are. So I would be of the mindset that I'd probably have to support that as it stands.
And if I could, I just want to add to Derek's comment, you know, there was ample opportunity that for people to come forward during the process again. And again, people didn't come until we're right here, ready to vote on it. So
Didn't the ordinance just come out today? New one?
there were many meetings where it
I
was
know, but didn't
discussed.
the ordinance, the actual written copy, just
You
get
mean posted? I
No.
don't know.
When was it posted?
Ask Amy.
Well, the ordinance hasn't been posted per se.
Right, so how is anybody supposed to read anything on this piece of paper before tonight?
All the changes have been made.
Come to the meeting.
Yeah, every meeting. There's
All
been
this was
changes.
discussed in every single meeting?
Yes.
But then it was just literally written out and brought today?
We've been refining it for 4 months.
Right, but the actual one that you're trying to pass just came out. So that's why the people are here tonight, because they are just finally reading it, the final version.
We had our attorney review it. Every draft, we had our attorney review, so this is
Oh, my
our
understanding-
final draft.
That's what I'm saying.
As
This
of
is the final
today,
draft
Pam.
that is posted. So this is the first time that people are seeing the final draft.
But all the information was available, to my understanding,
Yeah.
if you attended
Like I said,
the
we've been
meeting.
working on this ordinance for 4 or 5 months, so.
Right, but the final
Refining
draft is
as,
everything.
yes, the final
Right.
draft,
So that's why people are here tonight to voice their opinion.
You didn't
Because the
notify
final
any
draft.
of us.
And not a lot of people live in Door County to be able to come to the meetings. And if you do Zoom, a lot more people would probably have been here. Or gone to the meetings.
I'll make a motion. Are you looking for a motion?
Yeah, I was going to say the next
Okay, I
item
will-
would be a motion to,
All right, I will make a motion that we approve and adopt ordinance number 01-2023. This is our first ordinance of the year, Amy, which is the amendment of our short-term rental of residential dwellings ordinance.
the motion by Linda, second from,
Oh, as presented here tonight.
Sorry.
As in this draft presented this evening.
second by, so no one's going to second it? I'll second it. All right. Any further discussion? All those, I'll tell you what.
Roll call.
Nope, that's roll
We'll
call.
do a
It's roll
I was
call.
going to say, we're going to do a roll call on it anyhow, so.
Danielle?
We have a motion and a second for the amendment to the short-term rental residential dwellings ordinance number 01-2023. Amy, would you do the roll call, please?
Supervisor Danielle?
Aye.
Supervisor Vogel?
Aye.
Supervisor Hain?
Aye.
Chairman Wolfle?
Chairman Wolfle.
Yes, aye, sorry.
Supervisor Waite?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Motion carries, thank you. All right. Lost my own place here. Sorry, too much short-term stuff in here to find out where I am.
Financial report.
No, I'm just getting down through the package. Okay.
Take a 30-second recess. Let the chairs clear.
Yes, could we, Mr. Chairman?
Pardon me?
Can you change the battery here?
Okay. We'll take a 5-minute recess. That'll let me find where I was. All right, for a brief moment here while we change the batteries on the camera and some people exited the meeting, we're back on our agenda, which is the financial reports for the month of February and March, which you should have the account balances for both months, as well as the budget versus actual for both months, and the transaction list to date. So, does anyone have any questions on that? If not, we would need a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve and accept the financial reports for February and March 2023 as presented.
All right, we have a motion from Linda, a second from...
Okay.
Pardon me?
Go
Mark,
ahead.
second. Okay, and I know we got to do the treasurer's report, so I'll hold off on the approval till she shares her comments. Would you, Amy?
We received our second quarter general transportation aids, and we also made out our 2023 contribution to the Door County Humane Society during their double money campaign. So every dollar that we gave to them, it was matched. So our $2,000 contribution turned into $4,000. The town also has paid our second quarter and fire dues to the city of Sturgeon Bay.
Great, thank you. So we have a motion on the table. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Good. Okay. Approval of vouchers, bills, and claims. And again, there were two sets there, February through April. For February and March, I think everybody's had a chance to sign them, see them. Then a motion
I will make a motion to approve the vouchers, bills, and claims from February 21st, 2023 through April 17th, 2023.
Okay, motion by Mark, second by?
I'll second.
Second by Jeannie. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We'll take care of that. Oral committee or commission reports. We have in the packet the Plan Commission meetings from March 16th and the Park and Rec meeting from March 14th. Does anyone have any oral committee reports that they would like to make?
Could I just comment? And I'll send this to Laddie, but we are going to have another annual town yard sale over at the park next door. It's going to be Saturday, June 10th, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. So if you are interested in reserving a space, call Amy, 746-1230, and she'll put you down on the list. There's no fee or charge to rent a space. First come, first serve. We'll get a space under the pavilion until those 10 or 12 spaces are filled up, and then we have the whole yard to fill up. So Saturday, June 10th, yard sale. Our Door County Tourism Zone Commission meeting is delayed a week, so we won't be meeting until the 27th, so nothing new to report there.
Okay. Anything else? Otherwise, a motion to approve, put the minutes on file.
So moved.
Linda?
Second.
Mark? Linda and Mark, first and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. You got to do this quick, buddy. We're
Yes,
fading.
I mean, the Brewers are already in the second inning.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll try to make this brief, and I have my partner in crime here, Mr. Dale Vogel, who's the supervisor on the kind of the western half of the town of Sevastopol. Relative to activities in the last county board meeting, a couple things that I wanted to just highlight. One is there's a grant we approved for evaluation of Forestville Mill Pond following the extended drawdown, so there's going to be about 2 years worth of activity to manage collection of data, issuing reports, working with UW Oshkosh, who's a contractor they're working with, to look at the results of that drawdown activity. There's also some work with the farmland preservation plan. They kind of combine that along with the activities to do the comprehensive plan for the county, so they're kind of doing two at once. So there's going to be a future notification of a public hearing relative to the, to that process for that plan. And then lastly, probably one of the biggest things that was covered was the county board authorized Door County to enter into the opioid settlement agreement. So we could get somewhere, I think, in the neighborhood of 800K to a million potentially, depending on how many, 1.2, depending on how many counties participate with the state. The more that participate, the more we'll get paid, because then there's less work that lawyers have to do to try to jockey to get things filled, et cetera. A lot of that money has to be, most of that money has to be used for programs for opioid abatement, so things like halfway houses, treatment activities and costs, those sorts of things. So that's probably the biggest thing there. On the RPC side, there will be an upcoming public hearing that will, again, talk about the removal of the Utilities and Communications Ordinance. That will be coming up in the next month or so. Also, there is work with the RFP that was approved to do the planning activity that's going to cover all of the replacement of road signs in Door County. All 19,000 of them. Address signs, sorry, E91 address signs.
2024?
It's got some ARPA money, I think, that was used as part of the funding. So as soon as we get the plan, that activity will probably start either late this year or into next year. And they've got a vendor that they've are working with, Lang, who actually did some of the original sign work back in the 90s and in the early 2000s.
Excuse me, but it's going to be two-sided?
Yes, it's going to be the perpendicular.
The other way around?
Yeah.
Rather than flat, okay.
Yeah, so you'd be able to see it
from both
coming and
ways
going.
from the road,
Yep.
yeah.
Yes.
Good.
And then lastly, the broadband committee, we received a grant for doing the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Project. It's going to be coordinated by the United Way, so that's funding that will help, especially for folks, elderly folks, or those that really aren't comfortable with, some of the newer technology, be able to help bring them on board with this kind of technology. And also the latest FiberNet survey is out, so I encourage you to go to the Door County FiberNet website. There's now 3,956 respondents, and we now have almost 498 responses for the town of Sevastopol versus 472 in December. So again, our big push is going to be as we enter the summer to get seasonal owners, to get them to respond. So there'll be some more work the county is doing in that regard. And then our next meeting is tomorrow. It's the organizational meeting for the second half of the term for most of us on the county board. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you. All right.
Good.
All done. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Dale, do you have anything?
I added it.
Okay. Thank you. I
Took the
know.
words right out of your mouth,
Yep,
yeah.
I knew that. Okay. License and permits, you have the Door County inspection recap for the last couple of months. And it appears that Amy gave the Institute Cubs, or the Valmy Athletic Club.
I will be.
Will be giving them a liquor license. We need to prove that?
It's a Class B beer license.
Excuse me, beer
Just so
license, yeah.
everybody doesn't get up and
Yeah.
down, give them a liquor license.
Yeah, I think motion is in order, yes.
You do?
Yes, I
You
would
want to
like
make that
one.
motion? No, I'm sorry, you
No,
can't.
I would like someone else to make that motion. They did.
Does anybody
pay
feel
all-
the urge to help Amy out?
I
with
will
the
make a motion
Okay.
to give the Institute and Valmy Athletic Club a seasonal 2023 Class B beer license.
All right, motion by Mark.
I'll second that.
Must be thirsty. Second by Jean. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're good to go. Before we get into correspondence, just one thing in the back of my mind, and I think Amy sent this all out to you when you start looking at calendars next year with the reval. Take a look at that note.
Yeah,
We could have a very busy
I
fall.
read the note, yeah.
Yeah, just
Did
so
you
you
hear a
know.
lot of
Amy.
whining in that? I mean,
And I've asked her to send that note off to Associated Appraisal with some dates that we are not going to have it because of the conflicts for what she has to do, so just be aware.
Can you sleep now?
No, because I'm so worried about it. It'll be fine.
We have the City of Sturgeon Bay's fire report. The number of calls are down. even over the year. You'll hear about that tomorrow night. There's a copy of the note from the Destination Door County on the reimbursement for the Tourism Zone Commission. You have all of the current STR owners through January of 2023. Amy mentioned we had our general transportation aids, and we have a permit request through the DNR for riprap. We see those on a regular basis. There's last year we did a 36-inch culvert on Matthew
Town line.
and Clark Lake. Matthew and Clark Lake
I thought it
Road.
was town line.
Town line? Oh, yeah. Anyway, the gist of it is the county's got a program where when you're doing a 36-inch culvert, you can apply for bridge aid. So the total cost was $8,000. We got kicked back $4,500, so it was needed to be done, and we didn't have to pay the whole thing. The sanitary district has a note in here that they're raising the fee. That really only applies mostly to the people in Valmy and Institute. A note from the Humane Society acknowledging what Amy suggested or mentioned earlier about the donation. I included a copy of the pre-construction conference that involves Egg Harbor Road to the roundabout. Egg Harbor Road to 4257's junction. So they're going to be closing the road at night, there'll be detours, et cetera, but it's going to be a pretty quick thing. I think they have to be done by June 8th.
May. I thought May something when I was on that
Contract
call.
completion date
moved up
says
now?
June 8th.
Yeah, it was like May 24th or
Okay.
something like that. It starts
April
April 24th,
Yeah.
and it's
Right.
only like maybe a month.
Yeah, it's supposed to
not
be pretty quick.
long.
So it'll obviously make that better. And that covers everything that's in correspondence. Most of you will get a chance to do this all again tomorrow night because we have the annual meeting starting at 6.
What do you mean most of us? Some of us are excused?
6
No,
p.m.
all of us will be here.
No one sitting here.
I might not come, but I'll probably show up. Annual meeting tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Our next Board of Supervisors meeting is Monday, May 15th at 7 p.m. The open book, for those of you who want to schedule it, is on Friday, May 26th at 10 a.m.
He will be here.
It will be here.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, not
He will be here in-
virtual.
Correct, in person here.
Okay.
Linda, this is where you should have done your announcement of your,
You can do it
of
again.
the yard sale. You can do it again if you want to do it in announcements.
Laddie can post it on the channel, yard sale.
You had to give her the opening, huh? Okay. All right. With that, agenda's items for next month, I don't know.
Linda's
Linda's got something.
something.
Okay,
Yes.
so on Wednesday, April 19th at 10 a.m., here at the Town Hall is the Go Door County presentation.
Yes.
I think I saw something in the Peninsula Pulse.
It's at
So
10
can
and
you
at 2.
elaborate on that a little bit, Amy? Do you know exactly what?
I don't know exactly what they're doing.
It was a little vague.
I'm lost.
It is a little big. There's a poster out there
Okay.
about it. It's like coffee and
Donuts? I'll
a
plan.
presentation. I'm not exactly sure what's happening.
I get their.
I'm gonna check it out.
I get their emails.
Yeah, I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah, I get their emails, and they had, I forget how long ago was that, Dale, that we came to something
Yes.
here, and it was a
Aging-
discussion.
It was like aging with.
Right, aging in Door County.
Aging in Door County, and they did a
And
presentation.
that's what that's really what it's all about, but
This
they,
is what it's about? This Wednesday one is about
Yes.
aging in place?
Yes, they're doing
Well, I'm not
listings.
aging in place,
They're
I'm
doing
moving to a
listening
new place
sessions
soon.
throughout the county.
they're,
They're
they,
doing listening sessions throughout the county.
and I think they might be, you're right, it's vague. I think they might be also talking about what they've gathered
In the survey.
in the process
They're
that
gonna
they,
find
because
out.
they've been going, this has been going on for a while.
Okay,
Are
well,
there
I'll
results?
plan to check it out.
The results are going to be there is aging in Door County.
Right.
It would be shocking to come up
Well,
with
there's
some
a-
other result.
There's a coffee at 10 a.m. to 11 and a one from 2 p.m. to 3. There's 2
The
here.
one here is at 10 though.
They're
They're
both here.
Oh, they're both.
One at 10 and one at 2. Yeah.
All right.
We got through that.
I think that brings us to the end of everything in this meeting. So with that in mind, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
I'll move.
Motion by Derek.
Second.
Second by Mark. To adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are.